Something like that. All right, everyone, we are back. Make sure you guys scan it. Check in for part 2. Cameras on, people. Kids. 4. Plus, right now, plus 30 something. All right, everybody's back. Sure you finished checking in so we can move forward, please. Told you it's just one chapter today. All right. All right, I'm asking anybody that has not checked in yet, do it now before I switch. So I can start the class, please. Oh, I know. K-tape, yeah. Can't sit. It's just a different thing. I'm gonna have to sit in the. All right, we got 32, 33 check-ins. See who's not in yet. All right, Shanae, I need you to check in, please. Part 2, yep. Everybody else is in. I think it's just Shanae. All right, cameras on, everybody, please. Cameras. I think we're ready to start. All right. Go part 2. Let me just address a question that came through on YouTube. Sanam, she's asking, I am asking if the Real Estate Commission can do anytime investigation about the transaction that the broker is holding, that the documents should be in paper, or they check electronically. The broker keep the record electronical or in paper. So the requirement is to keep records, depending on the state, the requirement is to keep records for 6 years. Nowadays, because everything is electronically signed, it's okay to keep records online. So there's no actual anything that would force you to keep it on paper. You can digitalize and scan it, right? Digitalize, scan it, and keep it on your records. The only thing you need to do, so to address that question, is got to keep records for 6 years. Whether it's on paper or digitally, it doesn't matter. It matters you keep records for 6. Okay? So if you have the rest of the question, or if you remember answers, I can help you figure out which one it is. But 6 years, that's the requirement. Okay. All right, so sales comparison approach. Let's pick up some speed because then I want to focus on the income approach, which is where we're going to spend most of the time. Also, by the way, just giving a heads up, I'll repeat again in a little bit. If you guys go to my YouTube channel, New Direction School YouTube channel, and you search income approach, I have an actual video there, about 20-minute video, that explains the income approach in detail. Okay, so if there's anything maybe you don't want to ask now, whatever it might be, if there's anything that you have questions on and you ask me to explain or do a video, I can create a video just for you and put it on YouTube, and that will help everybody else. I don't do videos just because. I do videos because somebody asked a particular question that requires a demonstration, like the math questions. I create videos for. Okay. All right, Mr. Valdez, hello. If you have any questions, drop them here in the YouTube chat. So now I saw Relations Z video and you explained it very well. Great. Any other questions that you would like me to create a video? I will. All right, so let's, like I said, speed it up. Sales comparison. Huh? How to pass the test. There's several videos actually. You guys go to my YouTube channel as well. I have practice exam tests that I've done live. So there. It's there. I'm just saying. You guys don't take advantage of the resources, that's on you. All right. Step number 1 on passing the test is paying attention. Now, sales comparison approach is also known as, right here, as the market data approach. Why? Because it analyzes market data. It analyzes similar properties for sale. It's the comps. It's the CMA, right? Comparative market analysis. Comps is when we look at other properties around similar, how much they sold for, right? And that's what we use. Okay. We already talked about broker's opinion of value, or BOV, or PPO. You guys already know this. So, in the next page, the sales comparison approach, again, consists on comparing sales of recently sold properties. Okay. These are the steps for the sales comparison approach. We're going to identify comparable sales. Like I said, properties around there are similar in certain things. Compare the comparable subject to the subject and make adjustments, which I'm going to show in a little bit. And then weigh values indicated by the adjusted comparables for the final value estimate of the subject. Let me just answer a question here on YouTube. Rafael Valdez asks, are you still allowed to teach with the 13th edition? The answer is yes. Minor changes have happened between the 13th edition and the 14th edition. All the instructors, they can use the first edition, right? The key is the instructor being up to date. So whoever your instructor is, being up to date with the current laws, so the changes. So if I have a book that's outdated, I should be able to point out to you hey, let's cross this out, and by the way, here's an addendum or additional piece of paper that refers to this. So if you're not updating, your instructor's not updating the book, right, then they should at least know the differences. I'm not using Dearborn, Reflator. I'm not using Dearborn as my reference book. I'm using a different one. But if you want, go to my YouTube channel, and I have a whole playlist of every single chapter on the 13th edition. It's the same as a live class like we are right now, and everything is there for you to review. You can always come to class, participate like right now, so subscribe and get alerts. You come to class live, you can ask your questions, and I'll address them, okay? Carly, favorite. There you go. Thank you. You're talking about me or you? Because iCarly is famous, so I don't know. All right. You've watched 4 chapters already. Cool. All right. Any questions you have, just ask me during a live, and I will address them, okay? Or you can also write my number down and send me a message on WhatsApp. 908-418-8325. 908-418-8325. Now, going back to comparables. To qualify as a comparable, the property must, obviously, resemble. If it's a single family that you're trying to figure out the value, you're going to compare to single families, right? If it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you're going to compare it to properties that have 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? And so on. Also, location, very important. They must have been sold in a recent amount of time, so you're not going to compare a property that's sold today, right? That you're trying to sell today to a property that sold 10 years ago, right? And it must have been an arm's length transaction. What is arm's length transaction? Very simple. Arm's length. Very simple. What does that mean? Strangers. Because within arm's length are people that we, like friends or family. Somebody that we'll hug, for instance, right? So within arm's length, close friends or family, right? Those will favor the transaction. So if you're selling your house to your cousin's going to be like, come on, is that the best you can do? I know you can do better than that, right? So obviously that's not going to be the real price. So the arm's length transaction, right, means, hey, I know you, but I don't know you like that. Meaning, fight for yourself, I'll fight for myself, and hopefully we'll come in agreement on the price. Simple. So relative strangers, people that we keep at a distance, arm's length, keep at the nose, stop right there, right? Which nowadays it's almost everybody, right? We just go like elbow and that's it, right? 2020 changed the term arm's length to elbow length. But these are the requirements for it to be a comparable. How was it sold? So the time criteria at the bottom of page 225. The time criteria is important because transactions that occur too far in the past will not reflect the appreciation or recent changes in market conditions. Arm's length, as I said, presumed to have been negotiated disinterested parties who are presumed to have negotiated the market price for the property. If the sale of the house occurred between the father and the daughter, for example, one might assume that the transaction did not reflect the market value. Now, appraisers, they adjust the sales price of the comparables to account for competitive differences with the subject property. So what does this mean? I have a single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a garage, with a pool. Do you think all the properties around are going to be exactly the same? They all have 3-bedroom, 2-bath, garage, and pool? Do they have the same roof? Do they have the same siding? Do they have the same front yard, same backyard, the same size of the lot? No, there's always going to be some differences. So therefore, we can use it as comparable, Katya. We can use it as comparable, but we must adjust by adding or deducting value for those differences. Adding or deducting value for those differences. Okay? For example, A comparable has a swimming pool and the subject does not. When we say subject, it's the property we're trying to appraise. So let's say my property. I'm going to look at a comparable. So Katya's property has a swimming pool, right? Victor's property doesn't have a swimming pool, but has an extra bedroom, right? Its property, well, has a kitchen in the basement. Mine doesn't. You see what I'm saying? So the difference is I can still use the property if it's that close. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or minor differences between them. But I just have to adjust for those differences. So to equalize the difference right here, the appraiser deducts an amount from the sale price of the comparable. A lot of people make a mistake here when the question comes. They go like, oh, Bruno, so I got to deduct $6,000 from my property, the subject property. I'm like, how? If your property is the one that you're trying to come up with a value, right, then you're going to deduct from what exactly, right? So the deductions happen on the comparable property. I'm going to show you that in a second. If it has a pool and yours does not, we're going to take $6,000 from the comparable property. Because our value, my property value, is based on the average value of those. Okay? If they're better, then I need to reduce their value to be close as possible to what our value should be. I'm going to show you that in the table in a second. What are the adjustment criteria? What do we need to adjust for? The first one, time of sale. Time of sale. This is simple. I like to be within 90 to 180 days because that's the market we're in right now. Things are flying off the shelf so fast in my area, right? That something that sold 6 months ago has a totally different value than something that sold 3 months ago or less. Totally different value. So you want to be as close to the current date as possible. I'm not going to go 10 years back or 1 year back. No. 6 months, right, is the most that I'll go for. Okay, so I'll try to keep from 90 to 180 days. This is not important for the state exam. What's important is that you understand the concept as close to the current sale as possible. Okay, so the 90 to 180 is not the essential. Location. You want to be within a half to 1 mile radius. Why is this important? If I compare my single family home that I told you guys, single family 3-bedroom 2-bath here in Newark, if I compare to one in Florida, is it going to be the same value? No. What about if I compare to one, I'm in Newark, New Jersey, right? So if I compare to one in Atlantic City, then it's in Jersey, so we're good. No. What if I compare to one in a neighboring town, like Elizabeth? Right? It's a neighboring town, so it should be the same value, right? No. In Newark, there's different wards, there's different neighborhoods. In the Ironbound, I explained that earlier, in the Ironbound section of Newark, prices skyrocketed. Can I compare a single-family 3-bedroom 2-bath in Newark, in the Ironbound section of Newark, to one in North Newark, South Newark, or something like that? I cannot. Different markets from neighborhood to neighborhood. That's what it says here. So you have to be in a close range proximity and also understand that if that close range, like 1 mile radius, I'm in Elizabeth from here. 1 mile radius, I'm in Elizabeth. Less than half mile radius, I'm in two different, I'm telling you, where I am, central, right? Across the Route 21, I'm in the Ironbound. Okay? Half mile this way, I'm in South Newark. Half mile that way, I'm in North Newark. Totally different markets. So I need to account for that. Be within a half mile to 1 mile radius, but account for neighborhoods, different values, desirability. Crossing the street could be enough. Like I told you, cross the street and I'm in the Ironbound section. Could be enough to have a drastic change in value. All right? So location is key. And if you guys remember also the story of the $750,000 house, custom house in Elizabeth, when I told you $450 would be the best, right? It's because it was the location. Ruth, so why don't you do it by townships? First of all, what do you define as a township? Because I'm in the city of Newark, not in the township of Newark. Let's start right there. In the city of Newark, there's different wards, So it's divided into 5 sections, and each one of them has its own neighborhoods. So markets, ironbound section as an example, has commercial area and has residential area. The central is most commercial. It has some residential, which is most of it is mixed use, right? And then you go to the southward, it's mainly residential. There's some businesses there, but like not that many, right? So how can I do it by township? How can I do it by city? Can't. Okay, so you have to look at what the market demands certain areas. Okay. Physical characteristics. This is common sense. Single family, 3 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 bath. Right. Transaction characteristics. I did mention, guys, arm's length transaction. And was it cash? Was it a foreclosure? Was it a short sale? Was it whatever reason for the sale determines the value? This one, I'm telling you for a reason. Very simple. When the market crashed, a lot of realtors created bonds with investors. Okay? So what they were doing is using properties that sold at foreclosure, right? They were foreclosed for like $40,000 as an example, as I gave you the example before, right? $40,000. And they were using those as comparable to negotiate short sales. Okay? No good. So in 2012, they stopped allowing, so something came up that a rule that they stopped allowing to use foreclosures as comparables for regular sales or even short sales. You cannot. Okay? So the time of taking advantage of that market is gone. Remember I told you guys before, I bought some properties at a really steep discount. Nowadays, you cannot get the same thing. I mean, there's a unicorn here and there, but not the same flow that we had before. You're not buying 10 houses for like 40,000. You'll find one maybe for 40,000 here in the area, and you're just buying land, and you deal with demolishing whatever is there. All right. So these are the comparables. So you're trying to sell your property, and mortgage company, mortgage company, ABC Mortgage Company, is going to say, hey, Katya, here's what we need to do. The property you're trying to buy, we need to appraise. So if the property appraises, as we'll talk about in chapter 17. So sorry, run. Sorry about that. So if the property, blessed by God. Thank you, guys. You're blessed by God, and you think that's going to be. Aw, Carly. Aw, so cute. Thank you. Not scared? Okay, great. So, what was I saying? I lost. Oh, so I'm going to ask you as a lender, ABC Mortgage, I'm going to ask you to appraise the property, right? So, no, do an appraisal. That's what we're talking about here. I'm going to ask you, hey, we need to do an appraisal. We need to appraise the property, figure out what its current worth is, right? Its current value, the estimated value, right? So I'm going to ask that to happen now. The appraiser cannot use properties that foreclosed in the area as comparables. Okay, they have to use properties for mortgage purposes, financing purposes. They have to use properties that are similar and within similar transactions, like a regular conventional sale from a seller to a buyer, not family. We talked about this, arm's length, right? Not family transactions. We cannot include short sales or foreclosed properties because those come with a lesser value. Transfers within family usually are lesser value. Just sneeze, did it get all the way there? That's funny. You didn't get affected. You are blessed by God. You got all the way to the other side of the camera. Oh. Report what? It's not you, it's the appraiser. So this is all public records. So you will know. All right? I'll just leave it at that for now. You will know.
Right here,
that's why we do broker's price opinion or broker's opinion value. Okay? Yep, right here. Look. On page 228. All right, so how do you determine the value of the other property that you're comparing it to? Rafaelito, so here's the thing. We use their value is the sales value. That's what we use as comps. They sold for. Okay, they sold for a specific value. That's what we use. Okay? So we just have to identify properties that sold recently that are similar to the one you're trying to figure out value. Correct. Has to be recent, as most recent as possible, like yesterday. Recent as possible and as close to yours as possible. Okay? Now, a broker, salesperson, us guys, right? What we do is comps, period. Okay? We need to, and this is very important, exercise caution when in presenting a CMA as an appraisal, which is not. We could never, ever, ever, and this is a guaranteed state exam question or your money back. We can never, ever, 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 let me say it one more time, ever call it an appraisal. What we do is comps. Appraisals are prepared by certified or licensed appraisers. You guys got it? Make sure you take a note on this because it's a guaranteed state exam question. You can never call your comps an appraisal, ever. We do an estimate of value or market valuation, but it can never be said, oh, I'm doing a free appraisal. No. You're doing a free valuation of your property. Never call it an appraisal. You're not an appraisal, so you're saying that something is what it's not. So you could get sued because they were relying on your information. That's what it could happen. It's called misrepresentation. Does anybody remember misrepresentation? We talked about it, right? It's going to be misrepresentation. That's fraud. If it's intentional, right? It could be negligent. That means you're careless. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can get sued because they relied on what you were presenting. Okay. So here's an illustration real quick. We don't have to read the whole thing. This is just gives you a whole scenario, right? You're comparing data, Ruth. You're comparing data between one property and another. Okay. So the subject property has 8 bedrooms. Rafaelito, this is chapter 16 of the book that I use. Okay. It's not the same book that I use. It's not the Dearborn. But in your book, Rafaelito, if you're using Dearborn 13th edition, it's also chapter 16. It's the same number, chapter. All right, and you can go to the sales comparison approach, which is towards the end. It's like 4 pages to the end. Okay. All right. Thank you, Lula. All right, so here's what we got. We need to identify the property that we have, right? We need to identify the property we have. I'm trying to sell the subject property is the one I'm trying to sell. For me to sell, I must have a value. How am I going to figure out the value? I'm going to look for properties that are similar to the one I'm trying to sell. So 8 rooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, kitchen, living room, family room, 2,000 square feet of gross living area, 2-car attached garage, landscaping, and construction frame is aluminum siding. So I'm going to look for comparables. Guys, make sure you're paying attention here. Kick everybody out, please. Nargis, please. I'm telling you. lock them up or lock yourself up. Okay? You guys are going to have a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions in the state exam about appraisals. Okay? 14 questions in the state exam about appraisals. Right? So, we're going to use comparables. Comparable A, B, C, and D. We got to have at least 4 comparables, at least 4, to come up with a reasonable value. Okay? Chrissy, what are you laughing at? At Tatiana's comment, or? Okay. I ignored it completely. I saw it, but I just moved on. Didn't want to make a fuss about it. All right, so this is how it looks. When we put down the information, right? You have sales price. Notice that the subject property does not have a sales price. So how can we deduct from the sales property? We can't. Okay, we cannot. But we're going to look at, the subject property. We're going to look at the property A, B, C, and D. A sold for 1 million. B sold for 1.2. C sold for 1.15. And D sold for 1.09. Right? This is what they sold for. But how did they look? Well, financing terms, they sold on regular terms. So it's the conventional, FHA, VA, whatever. It was not a short sale. It was not a foreclosure. Then we have the sale date is now. So where it says equal, that means it was within the range that we accept, which is 6 months, right? So equal is now. If it was too long ago because we don't have enough comparables in the area, if it was too long ago, then this would change. Location, equal. Look at this one, minus 20. Why minus 20,000? Because that property is in a better location. So we have to deduct from the value, the 20,000. Age, equal. This one's newer, this one's older. That's why we make adjustments. Okay? Whatever's better, we take from the comparable. Whatever's worse, we add to the comparable. Lot size, the same thing. Remember, we cannot take money from our property. We need to take money from the ones that sold for. We already know, sold for this much. And so on, so on, so on. We add, deduct, or whatever. So here we have what's called net adjustments. So I'm teaching you guys how to read an appraisal. There's net adjustments. Guys, the property A, sold for 1 million, but after adjustments, we added $45,000 because our property is better than that one. So we needed to add money. Okay? Property B, 1.2. At the end of the adjustments, look at that. Less $144,000. Because property B is better. So we cannot use the better price. We need to use the lesser price. So we have to deduct from that one. And so on and so on. Our property is the average of these 4. What is the average of these 4? 1.12. So after we made the adjustments, we're going to look at the average of all 4 properties. And that's the value of ours, 1.12. Okay, that's how we use comparables. We're going to see how much this sold for, that one sold for, that one sold for, and so on. Make the adjustments, figure out the average number. So one way to do it is add all the numbers, divide by 4. Okay, and that'll be 1.12. Okay? All right, let me address, I'm sorry. Yeah, you need to figure out 4 properties or more. Let me address Carly's question right now. Is this an appraisal or an actual CMA? They are almost the same. They're almost the same. The difference is, can you do it or not? CMAs, we will run something very similar to this, right? It's still a sales comparison approach. The difference is CMA is prepared by a salesperson or a broker. An appraisal is still based on comps, right? But it's called an appraisal because it uses appraisal principles that we talked about before. Okay? So what do we have here is just an example of a sales comparison approach, where we compare properties that sold recently to the one we're trying to sell. So what you see right here could be either or. We're still not done. It could be either or. This is the basic one that everybody uses. It could be for appraisal, or it could be for broker's price opinion, or even comps. Okay? We have the cost approach. We don't do this one. We're not contractors. We have no idea of these values, so we don't do this one. We only do the CMA with sales comps or market data, and we do the income approach, right, which is the last one. Okay. Rafaelito, I just saw your message right now. Saturday classes, man, those are crazy. I used to teach Saturdays only. A Saturday only class, that's brutal, because then you have a whole week of distractions. Here we're doing every day, and people already find distractions in between. Imagine a Saturday class, crazy. We do the sales comparison, or we do the income approach. We don't do the cost approach. All right. So what is the cost approach? The cost approach is based on actual costs of development and construction. Now, the sales comparison approach, the cost approach is used for recently built properties and special purpose buildings. This is a question that will be on the exam. They'll ask you, for instance, a church. Which approach is most accurate for this type of property? And they're going to give you 4 answers. If it's a church, it's called a special purpose building. Why? Well, there's not many comps around. Let's start with that one. There's not many churches for sale. And number 2, it doesn't bring income. It's not a rental property. It brings income maybe as a donations or whatever, but it's not a rental. It's not rented. Usually, traditionally, it's not. A hospital, the same thing, right? A school, the same thing. A municipal property, the same thing. So they are special purpose buildings. We use the cost approach, make a note. We use the cost approach for special purpose buildings because we don't have comparables or income data or information. Okay? Special purpose buildings. And also the one I have here, which is the recently built properties. Why? What do you guys think? Carly, an example other than church? Schools, hospitals. Okay? They don't bring or generate income. And there's not many sales out there. Real quick. Why can we not use the sales comparison approach? I mean, we can, but it's not accurate. The sales comparison approach for recently built properties. I built a property today. Why can I not, or it's not the most applicable one for sales comparison approach? Why do I have to use the cost approach versus the other one? What is the what is the sales comparison approach? Think about that for a second. What is the sales comparison approach? Similar properties, right? So if I have a brand new property, brand new house that I just built, and there's no other brand new house on the market, how can I compare? How can I compare a house that was built 20 years ago to a house that was built today? That's the problem, right? You guys understand? there's not enough sales in the area to say, oh, brand new houses here in the area, yeah, they go for $1 million. There's not enough sales, sales and properties that were just built. So we don't use the sales comparison approach because there's not too many. There's not too many comparables. Because they're brand new, they only have an estimate of income. They don't have actual income. So it makes it difficult for you to determine the value. You guys got it? Thumbs up? As an example, yeah. Or recently built properties for the cost approach. All right. So we cover that. The types of costs. Please, your ears too much. The types of costs appraised. I already mentioned these before. We have the reproduction and the replacement. All you need to remember, reproduction, precise or exact duplicate. Replacement, functional equivalent. Okay? I talked about this in the first half, so you remember, right? Reproduction, exact duplicate. So we talked about copper pipes versus replacement, PVC or plastic or PEX pipes, right? You guys remember that? Okay, cool. Moving forward. You're still writing? Okay. We got depreciation. Loss of value. Depreciation, loss of value. Okay? So, whatever works. So, according to Katya, depreciation sounds like depression. Depression sounds like sad, so loss. Sad that you lost value. That works for you? Why not? How it is. If it works, it works. Anyway, so depreciation is a loss of value in the improvement over time. Why? Very simple. If I build a house today, brand new house today, is it going to last a lifetime? Is it going to be here for 100+ years without any type of maintenance, replacement? No. Just like me and you, over time, we depreciate. Something needs to be replaced. It's a knee replacement, it's the hip replacement, it's a kidney replacement, it's the, toe replacement. I didn't want to go there. Those are upgrades, they're not replacements. Replacement means it's damaged, and you need to upgrade it. I mean, you need to fix it. Sorry. No comments. That's cosmetic. It's not necessity. That's what we're talking about here. Some of them were thinking that too. It wasn't the ladies. Chaz went shaking my head, like shaking your head like this or like this. He's like, yeah. All right. So loss of value over time. Again, there's a wall right here. Is this going to last forever? The answer is no. Eventually, I need to replace this. Right? So depreciation is loss of value of an improvement over time. It needs to be replaced. It needs to be maintained. Okay? So an appraiser considers depreciation as having three causes. What causes the depreciation? What causes the depreciation? There's physical, needs to be replaced, physical deterioration over time, functional obsolescence, and economic obsolescence. What you need to remember, physical is wear and tear. Okay? Physical, every time you see physical, what is an example of physical deterioration? They're going to give you 4 answers. They're going to give you car lots next door. They're going to tell you the, let's say your neighbor's property. They're going to tell you the noisy neighbors. right? And then the other one is a leaky roof, okay? Out of these four, three of them are not on your property, so that's easy. They're not on your property. So if they're not on your property, right, we can start eliminating all of them, except one, the leaky roof. It's a physical issue that needs to be fixed, wear and tear. It could be curable. That means, hey, it's worth fixing. Or it could be incurable, where like, hey, there's no point in fixing it. Just knock everything down. Let's make it brand new. Curable or incurable, right? And then we have functional obsolescence. These are features of the house that are no longer desirable. Like the distribution of the house. You guys remember the four family that I told you that we closed? Remember that? Okay. It was listed as two of the units having 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Okay? And then 2 of units have 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And I'm like, that does not make any sense. If the house is a square, right? Whatever's on top is at the bottom. It's pretty much the same, right? Minus the stairs, maybe. Okay? Well, here's the thing. 2 of the units, they're using the living room as a living room, and the other 2 are using the living room as a bedroom. You know why? Functionality. Nowadays, we don't go to the living room and have a dining room as well. Like, it's either all merged or we're at the kitchen, right? So we don't have all this separations, all these separations, right? So technically, this 4 family, 2 bedroom 1, right, and 1 bedroom 1 can be converted to 2, 1 all around. So all 4 units can have a 2 bedroom. If the ones that are using the living room converted to, so functionality, convert the function, instead of being living room, becomes a bedroom. Okay? So again, physical means there's damage. Think about that right away. Physical, there's damage, wear and tear. Functional means I don't need this. I don't desire it to be this layout. I can change it. I can convert to something else. Okay, so functional is the purpose that it serves. So look for that in the answers. What about a railroad apartments in a house? Railroad apartments in a house? Could you clarify that one? A little lost on that one. Lola, could you explain that one? The undesirable of that style. Well, houses in a row? That's what you're asking? Is that it? Oh. So townhouses, row houses. Yeah. So that's not, you cannot change the function. You cannot change the house to be something else. It's attached. You cannot. Right? So that's that becomes a physical issue because you can't change it. Functionality is something that you can most likely change. Okay? And that's not the style. You're talking about style. I'm talking about function, layouts, being able to air condition it or not, function, okay? Useful. The next one we have is, hold on, Antar says, I don't understand something, functional not being desirable. Okay, you guys remember in the first half I was talking about how there's an increasing need for single family homes with 5 and 6 bedrooms, right? That means that the current use that it has, it's no longer desirable. Its current function, like having a dining room, a living room, an office space or whatever, is no longer desirable. Right now, people are changing to, hey, we don't have enough money, so let's cram everybody in one house. Yes, you have to live with this person and that person and that person. We don't like them that much, but they're family, so let's do it, right? So you cram everybody to the house. So the current function of that particular room is no longer desirable. And we convert it into a bedroom, as an example, right? So that's what it is. Functional is the purpose that it serves is no longer desirable. You got it, Antar? Good. It's just a change of what the current use is. Okay? And then the next one is this, economic obsolescence. Every time you see economic obsolescence, we're talking about external issues. What is external issues? Stuff that's not on your property and therefore incurable. Stuff that's not on your property, therefore incurable. What does that mean? The car lot next door, the gas station, the railroad that I got right here across the street. I can't move it. So it's external issue and it's incurable because I cannot move it. I cannot change it. And I cannot take this building anywhere else. You guys understand? It's incurable because it's out of my control. So if they ask you which one of these is curable or incurable, and they give you examples, right? If it's anything that's wear and tear or functional, they have the possibility of being curable. If it's something that's easy to do, okay? It might be incurable if it's difficult to do, okay, or at high cost. And then we have economic. Well, it's external issues beyond your property, and those are incurable. Okay? Good? Short version, external, incurable. Not on your property, external, incurable. That's it. That's the short version. Do anything with it. Stick with it. That's it. Lula, examples again? What do you mean? Which ones? For the functional, for the physical, or for the external? Is there anything on your property that can be incurable? Yeah. Maybe this building right here. Maybe it's too expensive to make it central air, right? It's too expensive, so it's incurable. It's not worth it. It's incurable. The change is not worth it. It's incurable. Anything that says incurable means it's going to cost you a lot of money. Mainly, that's what it is. Curable means it's easy to do at low cost. Pretty much. Putting an elevator in the building might be too costly. Incurable. Okay? Okay, no problem. Like when your neighbors have to travel through your property. You forgot what that's called? When they have to travel through your property? What is that called? An encumbrance. What kind of encumbrance? Come on, iCarly for the win. Come on, come on. Do it, do it, do it. Ah. Nope. Subservient, like subservient. It cannot just be servient, it's a servant of the servient. Subservient. Or you've been watching Mortal Kombat, I don't know. One of them. No. Easement, Calvin, thank you. It's an easement. What kind of easement is this encumbrance? What kind of easement is this encumbrance, since we're going at it? It could be two of them. Victor, no. Joanna, no. By prescription means you're stealing somebody's property. The squatter's one. That's by prescription. We have easement in gross, and we have easements appurtenant. So it could be in gross or appurtenant. Appurtenant will be a shared driveway. I have to use your property, part of your property, in order to access my property, right? Or it could be engrossed by necessity, where I have to go through your property to get to the public road. That's it. So, trying to make sure we're all on our toes. I get you. See that? It all ties together. So we'll get there. Right? This one's better. All right, we got 41 minutes. Let's see what's going to happen. Cost approach. Okay. So the steps in the cost approach is we're going to estimate the land value separately. Okay, if you guys don't understand what I just wrote, it's separately. That's what it is. So estimate land value separately. This is the only approach of the three. This is the only approach that calculates the land value separately. If you want to take a note, this is the only approach that calculates the land value separately. The only approach that calculates the land value separately. That means we're going to look at the land as if it were vacant. And how much value would it have by itself? Then we're going to look at either the reproduction or replacement cost of the improvements, which you guys already know what they are. Either back to the original material or a material that serves the same function. Lula, I forgot your question. Hold on. We're going to estimate accrued depreciation. We're going to subtract the depreciation from the cost. And we're going to add the land value that we calculated separately. We're going to add it to the end. Ruth, it again. That's not what you asked? You said say it again. I said it again. I don't know which part you want me to repeat. So here, what I was saying is, here we have land value by itself, as if it was vacant, right? And then we're going to figure out what would be the cost to rebuild this building. Either it's reproduction cost or replacement cost. It's either original material, exactly the same way it was built 100 years ago, or we're going to use current material. The appraiser will give both values. All right. Lula, let me go back to your question real quick. What was your question? Your question? Oh, for the car lot? The car lot means, I was talking about the external or economic obsolescence. I mentioned the car lot is something that's not on your property, right? Affects the value of your property, right? Or you need the other examples? Okay. So the other examples is a roof that's leaking. It's damaged. If it's damaged, it's physical deterioration. Okay. Functional is the way it's being used now is no longer desirable. So if a room is being used for a particular purpose, but we don't want it anymore, like it could be a den, right? You can use it as an office space, or you can turn it into a small room where you can put the husband once in a while when he misbehaves. So you choose. That's changing the function, the original function of a particular room, for instance. Citizen. The guys were all like, the women were all like, yeah. Tiny room, put him there. Lock it. All right. The other examples for economic obsolescences. The railroad. Across the street, I have the railroad, so I cannot change it. I cannot move it. It could be a gas station. I cannot move it. I cannot move my property. So again, Lula, the only thing you have to think about, loud neighbors, the only thing you have to think about for economic obsolescence, it's anything that's outside of your property. Anything outside of your property, that's what you look for in the answers. Okay? That's pretty much it. If it's outside of your property, It's an economic or external obsolescence. That's it. All right, let's go here. Estimate the land value. So we always going to, this is the easy part. You're always going to assume that the land, what the land value would be if it was vacant, unimproved. So if it was raw land, okay? That's what I told you. The cost approach is the only one that calculates land separately, the land value separately. So now we're going to go to the building. And to figure out either the replacement or the reproduction cost, we have 4 methods. These are the 2 most common ones, which is the square foot method and the unit in place method. These are the most common ones. The square foot method is easy. We got 2,000 square feet. It costs an average of $50 a square foot to build something similar. It's easy. We establish a value, a monetary value to each square footage. And if you guys ever done any type of construction on your home, or if you do it, right? A lot of people will come with estimates that say, hey, to do the floor is $1 a square foot. And you're like, $1 sounds cheap, right? Yeah, but if you got a lot of square feet, it's a lot of money. Time whatever feet you have. So that's what it is. We have an estimate in our mind as a contractor. We have an estimate of manpower, labor, and all that stuff. How much is going to cost? It's an estimate or an average of $1 a square foot for this type of thing. You understand? So this is the most common one. We're going to compare to previous constructions. We determine how much it costs to build, right? Divided by the square footage, and that's the square foot method. The unit in place method, it's the material cost manuals and estimate of labor costs, overhead, builder's profit, and so on. So it's like you're going as separate components. So instead of having a one size fits all, hey, it's $20 a square foot or $50 a square foot. No, we're saying, hey, we need pretty much 100 pieces or sheets of sheetrock. We need 300 or 400 2x4s. We need this, we need that. Those are by items. And it's going to cost roughly 300 hours of labor at $20 an hour, as an example. So these are itemized, right? This is the unit in place method. These are the 2 most common ones. Then we have the quantity survey and the cost index method, going right through these ones. Now, so cost approach. We are on page, by the way, page 235. Cost approach. Square foot or... All right, so cost approach illustration. This is what happens, guys. Very simply, not that hard. We're going to calculate land by itself. What is the land worth? The land is worth $80,000. That's the land by itself. Okay? Then, let me put a separation here. By itself. Then we're going to look at the improvements. Well, the main building. In this example, there's more stuff, but let's say it was just the main building. The main building is $260 to construct. That's the cost. $260,000. And then it has another structure. Let's say it's a garage. Another $16,000. So the cost to build a new one, $276,000. The cost to build a brand new one. Okay? Then we have depreciation. Loss. Right? Depreciation, loss. So in this example, there's physical depreciation, which is curable, $10,000. That's what it's going to cost to paint, for instance, right? Or incurable, we cannot air condition this unit, this building, so we lose $14,000 because that would be more or less the increase in value. So we lose $14,000. And then we have the functional obsolescence. We cannot do something or change something about the property. So the total loss or the total depreciation here is $30,000. Okay? What does that mean? It means that we calculated land, we calculated the cost to rebuild, we deducted depreciation, right? Right here, we deducted depreciation. So the building itself minus the depreciation is $246,000. That's the cost or value of the building right now. But we need to add the land because the land by itself has a value. It's not just the building, it's the land because it has to sit somewhere. Land in this area is worth 80. The cost or depreciation value is 246. So the indicated value of this approach says this building is $326,000. So again, concept is very simple. Land by itself, okay? Cost to build, land, cost to build. How much are we losing? Deduct that from the cost to build and add land. That's it. That's what happened here. Okay? Questions? Any questions here? Correct. So, addressing what you said right now, I have a question. Well, would the depreciation be given to you? Here's the cool thing about the state exam. These numbers are given to you. It's not something, guys, we have to calculate. This is for appraisals, but you have to understand how the appraisal works, yes, so you can then dispute it later on. Values, dispute values. You have to understand how appraisals work. Okay? You don't have to be the 100% pro, nobody else knows anything about this but you. No, you don't have to. But you need to understand the steps. Step number 1, land value by itself. Step number 2, what is the cost to rebuild something similar? Step number 3, figure out depreciation. Depreciation how? Well, physical, functional, or external. You'll have those values. We deduct that, step number 4, we deduct that from the construction costs. And step number 5, overall estimated value is the depreciated value plus the land. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we don't have to get involved in any of that. Here's the cool thing. You don't have to. For state exam, you don't have to. You don't have to know exactly how much it costs to build a sidewalk. You don't have to know exactly how much it costs to do a siding. For state exam, if you're not in construction right now, for state exam, you have to understand the concept and how to do it. Everything else, they'll give you the numbers. They can tell you, hey, sidewalk is $50,000. Boom. Okay, so you'll be given those numbers. Makes it a lot easier. Yes. All right, the final one. Who's ready for this? This is the last one. This is the money. This is the income approach. This is the, I'm going to lose everybody over the next couple pages. I'm very optimistic. Okay? So jump up and down, shake it off a little bit, get some energy because you're going to need it right now. We're going to go into math because we're going to have to go over income. Ruth, I won't go slow. I only have 26 minutes and 55 seconds. So I will not go slow. Okay? Hold on. Income capitalization approach. By the way, I'm messing with you guys. Okay? Income capitalization approach. This is assuming they have an income property. This is only applicable for income properties. Okay? It's used for income properties. That's common sense. Income capitalization approach is used for income properties. Easy, right? That means you need to remember this, not special buildings. You need to remember this. If it's for income properties, that means those properties have to generate rental. It's based on rental income. Generate rental based on rental income. So, this approach is based on the principle of anticipation. Do you guys remember the principle of anticipation? It means that we have value based on future expectations. I buy a property in expectation of collecting rents. I buy a property in expectation of increasing value over time. Right? That's anticipation. In this case, is about the income, future income stream of a property. That's will give value for an investor to pay. Okay? If there's no income, I might not pay $10 million for it. There's income that says, hey, it's worth the $10 million and more in the future. So yeah, I'll pay for it. Okay? So, the income approach is limited, on next page, is limited in two ways. One of them is because it's difficult to determine an appropriate capitalization rate. Very difficult. Because there's not many sales around, it also makes it difficult to find comparables that will give us an exact capitalization rate, which I'll explain in a second. Okay? Secondly, income approach relies on market information about income and expenses. So, step number one, why is it difficult? I'm sorry, reason number one of why it's difficult, not many around to compare to, maybe. Reason number two, did the previous listing include rental data? Did the previous listing include expenses? So we are relying on market information, provided information for rental, income, and expenses. So the income approach is based on income and expenses of a property. The income capitalization approach method consists of estimating an annual net operating income from the subject property and then applying a capitalization rate to the income. So this produces a principal amount that the investor would pay for the property. Let me translate. We have these steps. These steps, the most important step is getting to step number 3. This is the most important. This is where we get, if you guys ever heard of it, this is where we get our NOI. What is NOI? It's the net operating income. It's what we take home after paying expenses. Okay? And why is this important? Because I can have two properties that are exactly the same. Right? One property, work with me, one property brings $1 million. The other property brings $5 million. They're exactly the same. Which property has the most value? Let me know. Real quick. One property brings $1 million, the other property brings $5 million. Which one is worth more? You guys are going for the obvious, the $5 million, right? Wrong. They could bring exactly the same as well. It all depends on figuring out the expenses that we have. Ingrid, correct. Depends on expenses. What if one property has $30,000 worth of expenses, as an example, and the other one has 4 million and 70, $30,000 worth of expenses. Then at the end of the day, they're the same. Is it possible for that discrepancy in expenses? Yeah, it depends on how you manage it. Okay? So just because one property brings more money than the other, does not necessarily mean that it's worth more than the other. So how do we figure out? Again, we're going to start with estimating the potential gross income. That's assuming 100% of income or rental. 100% of income or rental. Assuming 100% of income or rental. So I have 100 units, $1,000 per unit. How much am I going to get? Let me know. I have 100 units, $1,000 per unit. How much should I get if it was 100% occupied? Okay. Forgot one thing. Times 12. Got it? That's the potential. That's the potential income for the year. Okay? That's a potential income. That's potential gross income. That's before expenses. So it's $100,000 a month, right? 1.2 a year, right? But then I have expenses. So we have to, then we have to account for being vacant. What is vacant? Empty. If I have 100 units, hold on. If I have 100 units, are they going to be 100% rented 100% of the year? Or is there a possibility that I'll have 1, 2, 3, 10 apartments vacant? Hotels, for instance. Hotels have sometimes 50% occupancy for the majority of the year. If a hotel can have narrowed down to 25% occupancy, they're profitable. Okay? If they're at 50, they're like, surviving. Where's the high season? Where's summer? Where's winter, depending on where you are, right? At 50% occupancy, they're suffering. If they can reduce the occupancy to 25%, they're okay. For hotels, that's okay. For an apartment building, that's not okay. If you're at 50 or 25%, sell it. Get rid of it. Bad. But you have to be able to calculate that. So minus vacancy, right? And losses. And that brings us to the effective gross income. This is the number, after calculating vacancy and losses, this is the number we can expect to receive from the property. But wait, there's more. We're not done yet. This is what we can expect, but then we have the monthly expenses, right? We got to pay for utilities, we got to pay for taxes, we got to pay for maintenance, right? We got to pay for management. So we have to deduct the expenses. So NOI, right? NOI is effective gross income, so EGI, effective gross income, minus expenses. So it's net for a reason. It's pretty much, guys, what you wished you would get paid from your paycheck, right? Then it's like, hey, I missed a couple of days, so I don't get paid for those days, unless you have paid time off, right? I didn't get paid for those days. And then deductions, expenses, deductions, Social Security and all that stuff in your paycheck. How much do you take home? That's your net, okay? That's your net pay, right? And I didn't talk about mortgages, did I? I didn't talk about mortgages. Yeah, because that's not calculated into the expenses. Just like your paycheck. In your paycheck, did you ever put there, like when you receive your paycheck, do you deduct for the gas and the tolls to get to work? No. Right? Because some people don't have the taxes and the gas and the toll to get to work. Some people live right next to work, to the same job that you go to. So we cannot use that as a comparable. I might have a mortgage, you might not have a mortgage, right? My mortgage, if I have one, might be at 5%. Yours might be at 7%, right? So those are variables where expenses usually are fixed, right? So we can only use fixed expenses, right, to calculate the NOI. And then we apply the cap rate, which I'll explain in a second. So again, recapping real quick. Estimate potential gross income means 100%, so it's the scheduled rent. 100%. The effective gross income is that 100% minus, let's say, 5%. Okay? Okay, this is just an example, guys. 5% for vacancy. That means the effective gross income is 95%. Okay? This is what we can expect to receive. So 100% wishful thinking. Is there anybody that never, ever, ever missed a day from work? Anybody? Raise your hand. One day. Your whole lifetime, you never missed a day. Nobody? Okay, cool. So that's the vacancy and the losses. You didn't go to work. If you work at a restaurant, you know the difference. If you're a salaried employee, it doesn't matter. But if you work at a restaurant, you know the difference. If you work at retail, you know the difference. You don't go work one day, you don't get paid. If you work for yourself, if you don't show up, you don't get paid, right? So that's what it is. The effective gross income, what we can expect to receive. But we have expenses to go to work. We have expenses. We paid to go to work. Did you guys know that? We paid to go to work. Ridiculous. Yeah. Your boss doesn't pay you. Oh, you're coming to work? You're coming like from 40 minutes away, an hour away? Let me pay for your gas. Let me pay for your tolls. You need to eat? Don't worry about it. Here's some credit for you to go eat over there. Here's some more money. Some bosses might do it. Not many. Right? Huh? Sometimes. Not as a job, but we do take out our agents a lot of times. They're here and we go to eat, they come. All right, next. Next. Effective gross income was that 95% that we said, right? Let's say the property was $100,000. Well, 95% is $95,000. Let's say that the expenses were $30,000. Those are the expenses we have on the property. What is the net operating income? All right, I know. You guys are done. I know. That's why I announced right away. I have a whole explanation on this in YouTube. All right, so $65,000. This is what you take home. Here's what you take home. NOI, net. After all the deductions, NOI. Okay? Notice again, I did not include debt service or mortgages. These are not expenses of the property. These are expenses of the individual. I might need a mortgage. You might not need a mortgage. These are expenses of the individual. It has nothing to do with the property. So debt service, mortgages, and so on, they do not apply. Next, select the capitalization rate. What is capitalization rate? It's an estimate of rate of return. ROR, rate of return, getting money back on your investment, rate of return on your investment. How do we figure that out? Well, based on market knowledge. Here's the good news for you guys. Actually, let me ask this. Who's going to go into residential? Residential properties. Who's going to go to commercial properties? Okay. Those of you that are going to go to commercial properties, learn this now. Residential properties, you don't need to know any of this now. Here's the good news. For state exam, it's simple. In the beginning, when we get to for the questions you're going to get in this exam, in the beginning, when you get into real estate, you're going to have a broker that helps you. So if you're in commercial, they will help you, right? So don't lose your head over this. It is expensive. It is It is extensive. It is extensive. There's probably like 2 questions in the state exam that will involve this, right? But you still have to know. And there's 2 types of NOIs. I mean cap rates. There's the incoming cap rate and the outgoing cap rate. So when you purchase, you want a number. When you exit or when you sell, you want another number. But for state exam, you're going to go through the simple stuff. They will give you the capitalization rate, which you're going to apply. They will give you all the numbers you need. You just need to remember the formula. And the formula is income divided by cap rate, which they'll provide, equals value. Income divided by cap rate equals value. So it's IRV. Income divided by cap rate equals value. And then there's variations of this formula. All right? So let's go over the calculations real quick. Oh, here's the better news. We have a chapter on math where we're going to go over this again and actually apply it. So we're going to have examples, apply it, and all that good stuff. All right? So income capitalization method illustration, we're going to estimate, in this example, the potential gross income. Who remembers potential gross income? It's assuming 100% income, right? So it's the potential 100% income, 192 for this property. Other income, let's say I have laundry machines that are coin operated. So I make another $2,000 from them. What is my potential gross income? If nothing fails, 194. But I know that it might fail. So in my experience, I know I need to account for 9,600 more or less of losses. Okay? So less the losses. So the money that I can expect to make out of this property before expenses, right, is 184,400. That's what I can expect from it every single year. If it's better, great. If it's worse, I did my math wrong. That's what it is. So be ready to get $184,000 out of this property. Then we're going to calculate the net operating income. And this involves operating, keyword operating expenses. Taxes, insurance, utilities, repairs, maintenance, management, reserves, legal, and accounting. The cool thing about the state exam, guys, is that they will give you this number. These are the total expenses. Okay, total expenses. Hold on a second. Anthony, how do you get the 9,600? It's based on experience, past experience of managing this property or this type of property. Let's say in the area, the loss is 8%, 10%, 25%. I told you for hotels, it's 50% in some seasons, 25% in others. So we have an estimate of that. So it's based on experience. In the state exam, they're either going to give you a percentage, let's say 8%, as an example, or they're going to give you a value. Okay, so either they give you one or give you another. Either they give you the percentage or they give you the value. Okay? Carly, so those washing machines mentioned go under NOI. No. Right here. Additional income that's not rental. Additional income that's not rental. This is where they go. Yeah, so it's taken from the potential gross income. Yes. The cost of maintaining, yes. So if you're talking about the cost of maintaining the machines, yeah, we'll put it here. Called maintenance. Somewhere here is already the machines as well. All right. So where are we? This is what we have. Are you with me? Stick with me. Forget the phone for a second. I just told you guys, listen to me. We have a chapter for math where we're going to do this stuff. Right now, the numbers are already here on the screen, so you don't have to grab your calculators. Focus on what I have. Okay? Understand the concept. So if you guys get distracted, you get lost, I have to explain again. Simple. Not that I mind, but I prefer you ask me again because you didn't understand versus being distracted. That's the only thing. So, effective gross income is what we can expect from the property income minus the expenses equals NOI. So comes to your pocket from the property. We're not talking about mortgage. We're not talking about financing. But from the property, how much comes to your pocket? $100,000 net at the end of the year. Okay? Now, this property that brings $100,000 has a cap rate based on the area's cap rates, has a cap rate of 7%. Before you ask, it's either going to be given to you or that's the number you need to figure out. Worry about that in the math class where we're going to go hands-on. Okay, my math class is hands-on. All right? So, they gave you this number in the question. They gave you this number in the question. We need to figure out the third number, which is value. This is value. That's what we're trying to figure out. So they told us income, $100,000, right? Rate or cap rate is 7%. They'll give you this number. The cap rate is based on comparable buildings. Okay? So $100,000 divided by the cap rate, this property that we're talking about is worth $1.4 million. Right? $1.4 million. It brings $100,000 every year with a cap rate of 7% because that's what they said this area would demand for this type of property. 7%. So the cap rate is, the value is $1.4 million. No. What they'll give you guys is two of these numbers, sometimes three of these numbers. You have to understand, and that's what I'm trying to explain today, mainly without doing math at all. You have to understand the process. Step number one, 100%. They might not give that to you. They might give you the end number and ask you to go back. They might give you the first number and ask you to go forward. They might give you just NOI and cap rate and figure out value. They might not give you any of this. They can go straight to these numbers right here at the bottom. It depends. So today what you need to understand is the process. Not the numbers yet. It's the process. Step number one. Again, estimate 100% occupancy and income. That's step number one. Step number two. Deduct rent collection losses, right? And vacancy. Units that are vacant, nobody there. That's step number two. Okay? Step number three. Deduct the expenses to reach the NOI and go to step number four, which is applying the cap rate. Okay? Simple. So you need to know is the steps. In the cost approach, steps. Income approach, steps. That's what you need to remember today, steps. Because when we get to the math class, right, that's when we're going to apply this. Today, understand the steps. Okay? Thumbs up? That's it. Rafaelito is going to be in Thanks, hi Carly. It's going to be in 2 weeks on not the next Friday, the one after that, the math class. All right, another thing we have here is GRM. We have gross rent and gross income multiplier approach. Okay, gross rent and gross income multiplier approach. When do we use, that's a potential question in the exam, when do we use this approach? The GRM or the GIM. When do we use this approach? We use them for properties that produce or might produce income but are not primarily income properties. Like single family homes, for instance. Single family homes, they're usually not income property. But guys, can I have a house by Jersey Shore somewhere and I rent it, right? I can do that. It's a single family, right? But it becomes an income property. The problem is there might not be enough sales in the area of income residential property, right? Or single family properties. Then there might not be enough income, sales properties for income properties like that. So we have to use an alternative method. It's called the GRM or the GIM. The methods consist of applying a multiplier to the estimated gross income or gross rent of the subject. The multiplier is derived from market data. Derived on from the market data on sale prices and gross income or gross rent. Okay. These are the steps. Ready? There are 2 steps only, so it's easy. First, we're going to select a gross rent multiplier by examining the sales price and monthly rents of comparable properties. Obviously, that sold recently. So we're going to look at other properties that sold recently, figure out what their income was, right? And notice that we're saying comparable properties, but there might not be many. So there might be a huge discrepancy between them. Now the concern of a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom or 3 bath or whatever, it's not a concern anymore. We just want to know if they're single families. That's it. Okay, and their income. What we're going to do, this is the formula, is we're going to look at those properties that sold. What's their price? Sales price. How much rent did they bring in? We divide these two, and we get this number. It's called the GRM or gross rent multiplier. Okay? Gross rent multiplier. This number determines, guys, so you have an idea, this number determines what's expected in the area as far as rentals. And if you guys remember, I talked about Newark, about how the rooms are like $800, now almost $1,000 a room. 3-bedroom apartment is around $3,000, right? So that gives you an idea of the market. You know why? Because the property on 100 Main Street is $3,000. Guess what? The property on 21 Adams Street is roughly $3,000. They're similar properties. So it tells you that the area has something that's common between all the properties. That's what we call a gross rent multiplier. If you multiply the sales price, or I'm sorry, the rental income by this number, you'll figure out a value. If you divide the value by this number, you'll figure out the rental, right? So there's an adjustment here that stabilizes the market. All rentals are similar. You're not going to find a 3-bedroom in this street that's $3,000 and the street over is $500, a 3-bedroom. Doesn't make sense. There's a balance, okay? So once we establish the GRM, we're going to look at our property, the subject property, and we're going to, because it's called multiplier, we're going to multiply. And that gives us the value. Okay? Here's a quick example, and then I'll let you guys go right after. Here's a quick example. And we are done. This is the example. We have here 4 properties, and we have the property we're trying to appraise, right? We have 4 properties. One of them sold for $500,000. The other one sold for $248,000. The other one sold for $324,000 and $304,000. Okay? The monthly rent from each one of them was $1,660, $1,500, $2,200, and $1,800. If you divide, and by the way, don't calculate because they made a mistake here. The number's a little off on one of them. But if you divide the $500,000 by the $1,660, if the numbers were correct, it would have been 151 GRM. Okay? 248 divided by 1,500, I'm sorry, would be 165 and so on. Once we find 4 properties and we determine the GRM for those 4 properties, we're going to figure out the average. How do we figure out the average? I already explained to you before. There's 4 properties, right? So we're going to add these values and we're going to divide by 4. Add them. And it would have been, and yes, I know numbers are incorrect. It would have been 160 as the local GRM. This is the average local GRM. All we have to do now, this is our property. All we have to do is multiply the 160, multiply by the 2,000, and our property is worth $320,000. So what we did is we looked at 4 properties. We figured out how much they sold for. We figure out what was the rental income. And by the way, this is all in the listings. Should be in the listings at least. So we figure out what happened, how much they sold for, how much rental they had. Divide the sales price by the income. We have the GRM. We figure out the average GRM. We apply it to the income on our property. And boom, value. You guys good? Are you giving me the thumbs up like, Bruno, this is over, let's get out? Or thumbs up like I got it? All right. Again, here's the cool thing about it. In the state exam, school exam, and so on, we'll give you a GRM, we'll give you the $2,000 and ask you using and another number just to throw you off. Using the GRM income approach, what is the value of this property? So we have to understand the concept, but they'll give you these numbers. They'll give you the GRM already. You don't even have to divide by 4. They'll give you the 160, they'll give you the 2,000, figure out the value. And they'll put a random number there, like expenses, for instance. Because it's the gross, not the net, expenses don't matter. So these are little things they do in the exam to throw you off. Lula, is that based on 100% occupancy? So yeah, it's based on 100% occupancy rental, gross rental. Yep, potential gross rental. Are churches and schools considered income properties? No. Cost approach because they're special purpose buildings. Yep. Any other questions, guys? Questions? That's like good night, everyone. We're done. Fried. All right, guys, if you're fried today, wait until tomorrow. Mortgages, financing, exciting. All right. I'm good with that, sure. All right, guys, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, ask the questions. Make sure you go over the end of the chapter quizzes. Make sure you use Quizlet, right? And again, ask questions. Very important. Rafaelito, tomorrow, 5:30. All right, guys. Good night. Thank you.